Hello, everyone, and welcome in to episode 37 of the Fuzed Relativity Podcast. Coming at you as a duo once again this evening.
Sadly, we
Our
are short one Kirk.
stupid Kirk got a job, and now he will only be here for like the last 20 minutes of the show. Good
That's
for
all
him,
right.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, go make that money. Well, John, how are you doing tonight?
It's been a busy weekend, or busy weekend. The weekend hasn't even started, and I'm already saying it's busy. Been a busy week.
I could second that. Things are getting a little hectic on my end of the spectrum, so
It's kind of funny that both of our jobs, for whatever reason, well, they're both seasonal, which sounds strange. But your job is definitely seasonal because you
for
deliver
sure.
stuff. My job is seasonal because stuff likes to become more prominent in winter, like disease and illness. Getting
Maybe
into flu
I'm
season.
guess I'm guessing that's why they created Christmas. You know, cheer things up in the dark days of winter. Which I still haven't adjusted to the fact that it's dark at like 5 o'clock now. Man, that sucks.
I prefer it.
That's because you're a vampire
It's here nor there.
or raccoon. Both of them like the night.
This
So
is true.
it could go either way. Well, without Kirk's aside here, I guess we can just jump on into the podcast because
Yeah.
don't have anything interesting to say about the week. So,
Well, and it leads directly to the name of the podcast. You spin me right round, baby. Right round.
yes, that
I'm
was a
not.
good title. Good title for the podcast this week. I was clued into our first topic, and it was something that I had never even heard of, but it was a cool concept nonetheless. It's a company called SpinLaunch, and it's exactly what you think it is. They spin stuff around and launch it into space.
Yes.
It's a little more complicated than that, but for the layman, they spin something really fast and then shoot it up into space with no propellant.
Not true. So to get it, from what I read and what I researched, to get it into the atmosphere, they don't use fuel. It is completely done by the spin launch. The thing that I'm curious about, because it said that it only got, they didn't give an exact, but it just said tens of thousands of feet, which to me that seems on the low end, like it only got about 10,000 feet up. Somewhere in there. Pikes Peak is 14,000 feet high. Most of our mountains are, or not most of, but a lot of mountains in Colorado are 14,000 feet.
Well, and to clarify, these are not. So this company isn't making like a rocket ship that's going to take people. This would be specifically for satellites and payloads that are not human. And I did see that they will need. I think that their goal is to have vacuum engines on whatever they're sending up because they will, of course, need some propellant once they get into space. But their end game is to have the main launch taken completely control of by the inertial launch, I guess, centrifugal launch.
Well, I came up with a great analogy. It's like the hammer throw. So, if you took a 16-pound, I had to look this up because I wasn't sure. If you took a 16-pound ball and tried to throw it, most people probably wouldn't be able to throw it about 10 feet, if that.
Sure.
You spin it, you spin around in a circle and let it go, you might get 15, 20 feet. you put it on the end of a rope or stick and spin it around and then throw it, you're going to get, 30, 40 feet. As just an example. I know, like, I would assume the Olympic record is, almost 300 feet, which is insane for a 16-pound ball. But that just shows you how much extra momentum can be put into something just by spinning around in circles. And from my understanding of this, it's the same thing. They spin it around in circles, getting it going as fast as it can go in a vacuum, mind you. This whole system looks like it's in a vacuum.
And it is in a vacuum, yeah.
And it's kind of funny that when you look at the video, which is available on their website, it's essentially just like a piece of paper that's stopping the vacuum. That's it.
They have some sort of cover over the exit hole for the whatever they're trying to launch, and once that thing breaks through, it breaks the vacuum.
Yeah, it's the same with I don't know if you've seen, but Smarter Every Day made a baseball cannon to get a baseball to go. I believe the whole point was to get a baseball to go Mach 1.
That's pretty fast for a baseball.
Yeah, or he was trying to get it to go 1,000, or he got it to go 1,700 or 1,074 miles per hour. And it's a similar thing. It's a vacuum tube with a pressurized launch, and as soon as you release that pressure, the little piece of paper that keeps the vacuum in breaks, and then poof. But
go
ahead.
So, I was just gonna say, so I did a little bit of research on this, and relatively interesting. The arm that holds the payload is 100 meters wide, or diameter. And
I think that's what they're planning, because the actual, or the one they tested, does not look 100 meters. So 100 meters is a football field.
Yes.
The one they've tested definitely doesn't look 100.
And so I guess I was looking at their end game, but the using just electricity, they spin that arm over an hour and a half to get up to 450 RPMs, which is pretty darn fast considering a 100-meter arm going 450 times a minute in a circle.
Which is 4,500 4,500 meters per minute. Right? 450 meters per second.
No, 450 meters, 450 revolutions.
Or RPM, yeah, sorry. So yeah, 450 RPM would be 4,500. So yeah, it's going 4,500 meters per minute. That rocket is traversing inside the disk.
Right. And then, so there's a few things. One, this is completely human impractical. There's no way a human could be launched into space this way, because the amount of G-force that is exerted on the object inside the chamber, they said, can be up to 10,000 Gs.
I was just about to say, I mean, it's essentially a centrifugal testing chamber just ramped up. But yeah, 10,000 Gs is a little bit on the make humans go liquid side.
Yeah, they said it would essentially separate you from your flesh.
Yeah, no, that's about right. You just kind of dissolve.
So my goal is to not test that. I don't care what they tell me. Yeah, and I was gonna add too that the other thing is when it shoots out, which is even more impressive because they literally have to launch this thing at the exact right time to release it so that it goes out the exit hole.
Yeah, but
And
that's easier with computers and all of that stuff.
but I think it comes out at like Mach 6, if I remember correctly.
If the numbers are correct and it's going 4,500 meters per minute, the exit velocity would be like 270,000 meters per hour, which sounds insane.
Yeah. And so there's a few things that they have to, tinker with, because things coming out of things that quickly is a little unpredictable.
So I have to look this up because there's a story. We've already done this. It's kind of funny. I don't know if searching Earth canon is going to make sense. I didn't think so. So I'm going to try and remember this the best I can. Back when we were testing nuclear bombs, they were drilling and doing the underground testing. One of the holes they capped off with this massive manhole cover.
Okay.
And when they tested the bomb, the manhole cover... Yeah, so the manhole cover was in frame for like a second. And then it wasn't. I'm trying to look up the exact stuff because, we're being trying to be educational and not wrong.
You might be wrong.
Yeah.
But while you're looking that up, I'm going to finish my statement real quick.
Okay.
So they're spinning this thing incredibly fast, and they're shooting it out, and they tested it the other day, and it worked. It was awfully crazy to watch. Like, I had never even heard of this company, and then all of a sudden I'm watching this video, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Could it be used to send things, payloads like supplies to the moon, or send, who knows what, satellites up, or there's all kinds of different things that this could potentially do. And they said they can launch up to 5 times a day, depending on, circumstances. So
yeah, that makes sense.
You're not seeing 5 rocket launches in a day, generally.
Not yet. So yeah, there's some contention to it, but to finish up my little story, and then we'll talk about the 5 launches a day. It may or may not have been the first man-made object into space, but when they did the factor, the cap was going about 6 times the escape velocity of Earth, which is 7,000 meters per second. So 42,000 meters per second. But it's a very good possibility that was just vaporized through the atmosphere because, that's ridiculously fast for a piece of steel.
Sure.
So, aside from that, onto the point of the 5 launches. And that's something I was thinking. Like, this would be great for rapid launch because you load it up, put a new piece of paper on, spin it up, shoot it again. You've got your next satellite. The problem is these aren't exactly going to be taking up Hubble telescopes.
That was what I thought the limitation would be, is how big of a payload you could actually send up, because this thing's got to be massive just to throw anything. And then the more you increase the size of the payload, the bigger you're going to have to make this unit.
Yes, and that's where they're going to run into problems. I'm guessing their best guess is that 1,000 meters is probably the tipping point for how big they can make it versus, safety factors of spinning something that fast. Because, I mean, if you think about it, if you were to turn this on its side, you've just got yourself a massive gun, essentially. Because it's acts the same way. You're launching something out of a tube, at many times the speed that it should be.
Well, and theoretically, like they had talked about in the video that I watched, they talked about how experiments of this nature have been done before, such as rail guns
I was gonna,
and
yeah.
those type of things that shoot projectiles. And I mean, based on the video I saw, that thing came out like a screaming eagle.
Well, and that's gonna be the other limiting factor to this is, will sensitive electronics stand up to this? Like, you put your phone in there and you launch it, there's a good chance that, something's not going to... It's not going to be in one piece if you were able to recover it, because just of the sheer velocity. Like you said, 10,000 Gs, that's a lot. So the satellites that they're going to have to try and put up are going to have to be rated to withstand that amount of force, which potentially brings up other problems. Now, I'm just going to, just since I brought it up, I'm going to think about this, but the first thing that comes to mind with this is you're going to have hardened materials or strong composites to withstand all the forces involved, which means that they are going to be much more likely to withstand re-entry into the atmosphere. Which means that now, instead of sending up in satellites that are made of aluminum and components that just melt when they start heating the atmosphere, you've now sent up stuff that can potentially survive coming back through. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And part of the other thing that I was going to bring up was, unfortunately, I think in a scale that test worked, but you're not going to have a whole lot of control over that thing once it's in the air.
Yeah, that's not true.
Well, you don't have any engines, though. I mean, theoretically, you're going to have a vacuum engine, but you're not going to have any course correction ability.
It doesn't. That's what rifling is for. So this is something that they have used. Sounding rockets use it a lot. But once you I don't know if you know what a sounding rocket is.
I do.
Yeah. So you pack the rocket, you launch it. Once it gets up into the air, you don't have control of it. But what happens is it starts spinning. Just like a bullet out of a rifle barrel would. It starts spinning, and it provides the stabilization to keep going straight, or where it needs to.
Right.
And there's nothing to say that the rocket or the ship that is... The mock-ups they have are all straight carbon fiber fins, which makes sense. And the animations they have on their website show the drum and launching system kind of at a tilted angle, so it would launch at an angle. But this is essentially, like I said, this is a gun. You see where I'm going with the comparison, though? I don't want.
Well, yeah, and I think that's part of what they were going for, and that's why they likened it in the video to guns, is because people had said, well, why can't we just use guns to shoot things up into space?
Then they've tried.
And they have, yes.
I think that was possibly one of the more successful ones, too, if I remember, was a gun-based system. But realistically, railguns would be the next closest, but you're still looking at that massive amount of G-force. And this
none of this is going to be human potential. All of these concepts are going to be for payloads only. There will be no humans involved.
Yeah. So, quiz me this, because I was thinking about it. Is there, not an actual firearm or anything like that, but wasn't there a toy gun where you had a spinning drum, and it would catch the ammo and fling it out. I see I've stumped you.
A toy gun that would with a spinning drum.
So, like this. This is what because this reminds me of that, and I just keep thinking of, like, some. Do you understand?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what you're talking about as far as a toy, but I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the first thing that I Google is gonna be Nerf guns, but those are.
I would imagine Nerf guns would come up first, no matter what. But
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's, like, it would make sense if you had something that was spinning and you just drop something in it. It makes one rotation at that speed and then just gets launched out. Which is essentially what they're doing. It's just, on a rocket scale. Kind of.
well, I mean, it was a cool idea, and for
Yeah.
something that I hadn't even seen. I spent a little bit of time digging into it because I found it to be exciting enough to look at. But then I kind of poked holes in its practicalities just because it seems limited at this
Well,
point.
and that's the thing. It's like, I hate to say it because it's always like, oh, SpaceX. Starship is going to be the defining factor of spaceflight for our, potential future. And it's just because if Starship goes operational and everything works the way they think it's going to, it's just going to completely revolutionize everything, because you're going to have a spacecraft that can launch and do all this stuff repeatedly.
Well, and so one thing that this thing could be possibly used for, the SpinLaunch. So now everybody's on Mars, right? Let's say you've got a colony on Mars, and you need to get a supply capsule from Earth to Mars, and instead of sending up a starship, well, man, now that I think about it, a starship's going to be able to hold way more stuff than.
Yeah, you've got 120 tons versus, a suitcase.
Right.
And that's the limiting factor. Is like, and if they're charging $1 million, because these, I'm assuming from what I saw, these are going to be like carbon fiber shells. They're going to have, the vacuum engines. It's going to have fuel. It's going to have all of this stuff. And that's all going to keep raising the cost. Like, right now.
And then
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if something unfortunately goes wrong inside that chamber, and one of those things, let's say, gets unlodged, and I mean, you could say goodbye to that centrifuge.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the picture they had. It looked very simplistic, so I wouldn't be worried too much on that.
It does remind me of SpaceX, though, like just the theory of, hey, let's look at what do you guys think about spinning something really fast and shooting it into space? Yeah, it's a good idea. Let's do that. And then they did it.
Well, I mean, I don't fault them. It is a very unique idea to it. And if this was being worked on 10 years ago, it would be revolutionary and more newsworthy. But right now, you've got, Electron with their mini launcher. You've got Virgin Galactic with their plane-based launcher. You've got... what's another one that I'm thinking of? There's another one. There's just the one that we're kind of named beside Relativity Space.
Yeah.
You've got all of these companies that are making small sat launchers that are cheaper than the traditional launchers. It's going to be a very tough market. And especially, like I said, if they're charging, $1 million to go on their spinny gun to space, and not Tesla, SpaceX is like, oh, hey, yeah, ours is $1 million too. And we can take up 100 of your little experiments instead of just one.
I feel like someone should have consulted you when they named it, because Spinny Gun, that's way more exciting than SpinLaunch.
I've got this stupid. It's gonna drive me nuts. I know I've seen something similar, but where you spin something and you just get it spinning fast enough, drop something in, and then it will launch out at a specific angle at a target. I can't remember where I've seen it, but it's a very similar concept to this. And like I said, it's. I wish them luck. I hope to see it actually launch, because that would be a very unique launch to watch. Kind of like the Sea Dragon. Like if that gun had ever, or not gun, I'm stuck on guns too. If that rocket had ever launched, it would have been so impressive.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would have had, like, even just seeing their test launch was cool. It was kind of an interesting video to see. Just how the whole thing works.
Yeah, I absolutely. Right before the podcast, I spent a good amount of time just watching those videos, because it is very fascinating. Like, just the amount of ingenuity that is being put into this. The fact that it is potentially just being overshadowed by SpaceX again it's just, See, I'm very torn on this, if you can't tell. Like, I like SpaceX. I think SpaceX is going to be the future of spaceflight. Sadly, SpaceX is going to be the future of spaceflight. We aren't going to see as many of these innovations when everything's going to be able to be done cheaply.
Well, and money will probably, that'll be the key, right? That's going to be what's going to cause everyone to either yay or nay a specific product, is how much it costs to use.
It's funny. I was just heard a very long discussion on nuclear energy and why people aren't using it, or why it's not as. And it's the same thing. It's money. It costs so much money to build like a nuclear reactor that it just, you can't recoup the costs. Especially when, throwing up a wind turbine or a coal plant are just cheaper, easier, and faster. And,
right. And if you've got, I mean, these guys clearly had investors, so was people, there's people who are interested enough to invest money in it. And so they're going to have to make a return on that eventually. So they will send stuff to space.
See, if you want my opinion on technology that could potentially change space travel, this is my opinion from years of thinking about it. There is an engine called I'm going to forget what it's called. Good God.
M Drive.
No, it's the one that does both. Ramjet. Not Ramjet. Oh.
The M Drive was finally put to bed. They decided it just doesn't. Yeah. They decided that after doing all the tests and the calculations that it just doesn't work.
That doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I searched the wrong thing. Anyway, there is a rocket that I cannot for the life of me think of that uses oxygen both in air breathing and closed, so open and closed cycle. And the reason this is important is because a lot of the fuel, like when SpaceX or any rocket company launches a rocket from Earth, those engines have oxygen. So the rocket has to carry oxygen. Even though it's launching from atmosphere, it has to carry oxygen to use to burn. Because it can't pull in oxygen from the outside. I'm trying to think of it. But
and it's cooled oxygen, right? We're talking liquid oxygen.
Yeah, so it's liquid oxygen. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, so liquid oxygen is what gets pushed through at the beginning, and that with the dual jet, it turns into. I've completely lost my train of thought, Chris. I don't know where I went with that. I just.
Do you want to go on and check out our chat real quick?
Yeah, no, I've already done it.
All right. Sorry, guys. We had a little housekeeping we had to do. People coming into the chat that we don't need in there. But switching gears, John. One thing,
do.
And I forgot to tell you about this morning. Yeah, see, please do, because you're stumbling. That's okay. I was super bummed to find out that they postponed the Artemis mission again.
Surprising. Yeah,
obviously
you can tell the sarcasm.
For those of you who don't know, the Artemis mission was for the moon. So that was the mission that they have planned to send back to the moon, and it was slated for 2024. We were super excited because I think a moon mission is going to be absolutely fantastic. It's close. It's only 3 days to get there. And the pictures that we would be able to see from the moon, I just feel like are going to be absolutely outstanding. But now they've postponed it to 2025.
It won't matter. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter in the long run. Everyone knew it was going to be postponed again. Because that's just, it's unfortunately NASA. And
I know, but it could just be because I am, maybe just excited for the mission and want to see it succeed so that I can see pictures from the moon. But I don't know. It bums me out because I just want it to be here, I guess.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be quicker than you think. Because SpaceX isn't going to stop working on it. Bezos could sue NASA every day for the next year. It's not going to slow down SpaceX. That's a given.
Well, but they haven't shown any. I mean, granted, we know that Musk is more importantly focused on Mars, but they haven't shown anything that I can see that they're even looking at going to the moon.
Who?
I know that they're trying to build the lander for the moon.
Oh, and that's just it. They are going to the moon, though. Well, I think Dear Moon was pushed to Starship. I could be wrong on that. But see, that's the thing is, what if they just decide they're going to go without NASA? NASA can't stop them and be like, no, please don't go to the moon without us. That would make us sad. It's like, there's nothing.
Well, at this, because they have the lander contract, I would imagine it doesn't behoove them to go earlier than with NASA because NASA can just pull the contract. But
it doesn't matter. That's the thing is, they're not going to pull the contract. It's just the whole Artemis program was built around using antiquated old ass tech. That is why it was, if you look at everything, it's designed and looks like the Apollo missions, just with extra steps. Yeah, that's what it is. The Artemis mission is the Apollo mission with extra steps. And then you have Starship. In theory, Starship could take up the whole Artemis lunar gateway, the lander, or not the lander, the gateway, because the Starship is the lander, and the vehicle to take the astronauts there all at once. It could do the entire mission on its own, in theory.
Yeah.
And you still have NASA wanting to do this tiny little lunar gateway, which it's tiny. Like, you're going to hook Starship up to it. It's going to be like the solar panels on the ISS versus, the ISS. The solar panels are what makes it you be able to see the ISS from the ground. It's going to be what the Starship is. It's going to be this massive thing hooked up to this tiny little platform.
Well, and then there's a lot of ethical stuff with it, though, right? Because NASA's saying we don't want to build this gigantic lunar gateway on the moon and then take over the moon with, a bunch of crap, right?
But So here's my point with Artemis. I don't like Artemis. I think the Artemis program is a bit on the ridiculous side. Why not contract SpaceX to build? Because they're already talking about wanting to build another space station, right? So You have one in space in Earth's orbit. You have one in Mars in lunar orbit. You have a ship that can ferry and go between the two. The 3-day trip. It's not that far. If
you said Mars, John.
Did I say Mars? I was doing this in the Space Engineer stream last week too. I kept saying ion instead of hydrogen, or vice versa. So you have your space station around Earth. You have your space station around Mars. You have starships that fly in between the two, doing all sorts of scientific-y stuff.
Okay, hold on. So I'm confused. You said Mars again.
I meant the moon.
About
the moon?
Okay, so you're saying we have a space station on the moon.
Yes.
And then we have the ISS.
Yeah. Well, ISS replacement. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to clarify because things were getting a little confusing. So
because I keep saying, no Mars. Mars. If I said Mars, it was the moon.
Okay.
Mars comes next.
Well, and theoretically, that would be the jumping point, right? Because once you get to, if you could get fuel to the moon, which would be cool, you could fly to the moon in 3 days. Well, most of your fuel, almost all your fuel gets burned up just getting out of Earth's atmosphere. So then you go to the moon and refuel. Now you can shoot over to Mars, right?
Yeah. And that's my thing, is like, if you go back and look, most of the ISS was built using the shuttle, which had the large bay and had the room to carry lots of stuff up into space. Now you have Starship, which is going to have a very similar cargo capacity. Why not use it to rebuild and build a larger space station? Because if you built the Lunar Gateway, like, if I walked up to a random person and said, if I told you, what would a lunar gateway look like to you? People would think like a massive structure that could house, you'd have spaceships flying in and out of and all of that jazz. When in reality, it's 2 capsules and some solar panels. Doesn't exactly spark imagination.
I saw a Ferris wheel. I don't know why.
Well, see, and that's just it. It's like you have this envision from sci-fi movies that gateway is supposed to be, like a hub. A way to actually do stuff. In reality, they've got it as it's a couple modules and some solar panels.
So essentially, you're talking like it would be a a base in the Arctic where
Yeah, like McMurdo.
Yeah, so they essentially have just a small outpost building where everybody works out of, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we go by SpaceX's thoughts that they're going to have starships flying up and down, constantly, they want 5 launches a day or 10 launches or whatever ridiculous amount of launches they want a day. You have people going up and down. So not only could you use this lunar gateway as a massive tourist destination, because, if you could just say, hey, $10,000 and go on a week and a half long trip and stay in the moon resort, where, you orbit the moon and then catch a ride back to Earth and back down on a starship, how many people would do that if it was reasonably priced?
I think I would even raise my hand on that. And I'm the guy who doesn't want to leave Earth. So I don't know why I like the moon. I think going to the moon would be super fun.
Well,
but I think if that was the case, I would even sign up for that.
See, like, if most cruises are ridiculously expensive, and I understand that they're all inclusive and you're spending multiple weeks on a boat, and boats are expensive, but it's like, if you focus that and flipped it around to, like, taking a starship up and, stopping at the ISS to get supplies and move stuff around, and then, ISS 2.0, where you get to spend a night in ISS orbiting Earth, and, all of the views that would entail, then you hop back on the starship and it takes you to the moon for 3 days. You get a 3-day trip out to the moon, spend a couple days on the moon, and then right back to Earth. That would be a vacation of a lifetime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, this is going to be one of the dumber questions I've ever thrown at you, John.
Go.
What's the you said all inclusive on cruises and then vacation, and it made me think of like boozing it up. What do you think your tolerance would be on the moon?
Well, I mean, the theory goes that, the higher up you go, the easier it is to get drunk. So I'm going to assume that most of the bartenders would limit you to like a shooter.
Right.
It.
You would. I'm just guessing your BAC would go up rather quickly while being on the moon.
The other thing to think about would be that would be a lot of, I mean, this is something that would be like 20, 30 years down the road, but it would be interesting to see how that would play out, because that's something that we could honestly debate on for probably quite a while. Is just the potential for, what would and would not be acceptable on a vacation to the moon. That may have to come for a later podcast.
Well, and the debate would also have to turn into like, I think gravity generation. I mean, granted, that's just theory and sci-fi at this point, but
it's
if they could come
possible though. That's well within practicality though. You just need, I say practicality, I don't know the exact physics, obviously not any well versed enough, but you have a rotating habitat section. That's not so much. I was talking more along the lines of like alcohol and other things like that. Adult time.
Well, yes, but I'm saying it would be hard. Hey, Kirk looks like he's about in.
Sweet.
Yes, I left. I just left bartending, hanging out with a bunch of drunks, and I come do a podcast. And thanks for reminding me of work.
I was gonna say, we're just talking about. You will like the concept though, Kirk. We were talking about lunar vacations.
Okay.
So
vacationing on the moon.
Yes.
Right. So if they were to establish like a 4-star hotel on the moon and
or
you could
in
go
orbit,
up and Yeah, and you could go up and stay there for like 3 days, and have a little almost like a cruise, but in space. How much do you think it would take to get drunk because there is no atmosphere?
So in Colorado, there's less oxygen, so it's like when you drink here and you go other places, you're like a champ. So like space would be like 10 times that.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, you'd have to crush the minibar.
And I'm guessing probably not the most responsible thing to do when you're in space, because you know.
Well, that's kind of what my point was. It's like there's certain things you probably don't want to do in space, like throw up. I can't envision that being enjoyable whatsoever.
That's gonna go everywhere. Yeah, that's an abstract painting in real life in 3D.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, forgetting not to take off your well, I guess in that sense you would be in a controlled oxygen environment, but still it would be it wouldn't be good.
Well, and you think if you're going all the way to space, you think you'd want to remember it. You know what I mean? Like, why you spend all that time and energy and effort, and then you're hungover and you're not. I want to lay down. I don't want to look at anything. What? You just wasted 3 days, right?
Well, plus like 50% of people get sick when they go to space anyway, so you probably already have enough problems on your plate. But
that would be a shock to the system. It's like altitude sickness times 1,000,000. It's way higher than
yes,
going to 10,000 feet.
John, another little housekeeping thing here. Could you possibly move your circle?
What circle? Oh, I have. Kirk's name has.
Yeah, it was.
By the way, did you see the quickness? Did you see? Come on, a new name.
Bartender Buckout. All right.
Not that original, but hey, look. It's a numbers game. This is what are we on 37?
Yeah,
episode 37.
Huh. Who would have thunk it? Two guys who can't even count to 37 somehow make it. And by the way, your mustache, was it an attempt to make a filter for your nose to try to make the stink? That's what I'm picturing. It's like a nose filter. Like, okay, so another one, like you say, you say mustache, I say hair lip. Okay.
All right. I mean, make fun of my mustache all you want. It's awesome.
Look, I wasn't here for the first half, so I feel I am playing catch up. I gotta.
Right. Fair enough.
All right, John, you're pale. Okay. Anyway, moving on. I didn't have to. That one wasn't clever.
I already made fun of him for that, Kirk. I was trying to fill your shoes.
That's funny. Yeah. So just my shoes are just basically being mean, just giving verbal rib kicks for no good reason, but except for fun.
And then we talked about the SpinLaunch. That one was pretty fun. And then
is there going to be a rinse lunch? All right. Hey-o. Okay. All right. Never mind. Okay. I take that away.
We got over to the moon landers because they pushed the Artemis mission back another year, which was the next NASA moon mission. So we've been kind of chit-chatting about that. And then I think in the last little bit, John, you did want to, something we haven't done in a long time.
3D printing.
3D. We haven't brought up 3D printing, which is one of the things we initially started this podcast on, which then we fell into a space run.
Right.
The sad thing about, I don't know how it's been for you, Chris, but like my printer's been mostly quiet for the last 4 months-ish. Ever since.
So the initial wore off. Like, how many months was it exciting and new, and then it kind of gets boring?
It's not that. It's just like, for me, every time I hit a major problem, it kills the just the momentum. Like for my new Pressa, it needed a new nozzle, which was fine. I put a new nozzle on, and then, as Chris knows, every time you replace a nozzle, you have to kind of fine tune it back to get it back to where it was.
It takes a while to get it back synced up. Like it's a little, like it's a new thing, so it's globby, it's thin or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like changing your guitar strings, Kirk. You know how they're just not. They sound a little weird in the beginning.
It takes a while to break them in, and it's got to hit the sweet spot.
So, and that's the biggest problem. Like the other problem I have is I've got two other printers. My old Pressa, the heat bed's dead, and I don't even want to think about having to work that because I just spent $100 replacing the hot end on it, and I don't really want to look and see how much a new heat bed is for that thing, or the amount of work it would take to get the bed off to put a new one on. Like it's not something I want to think about.
It's odd Pressa because it has the same name as it sounds like it should be in the Wu-Tang Clan. Give it up for Pressa, everybody! Come on, on the ones and the twos. I don't know.
So what you're saying is that heat bed ain't nothing to fuck with.
That could be exactly what I once said. Yes, indeed.
But
all right.
The reason we wanted to bring up 3D printing is one of the things, because I was trying to be all controversial and get likes or something. When I started doing 3D printing and researching into it, a lot of people were like, you need to store your filament in a dry, dehumidified box. It needs to stay dry, yada, yada, yada. Humidity will cause problems, all this other shit. I don't attest to that. And to prove it, I have 5.5-year-old filament. Now, this filament has never printed great to begin with because it's transparent and it's old. But I tried to print this ornamental gang guard, and it...
Did you have to initiate the gang guard?
it didn't... the supports are just as hard as the print. There's issues. And then one of the comments I got on the video was, you need to hydrate your filament. It's too dry.
It's just the humidity. It's very dry in Colorado. There's no moisture in the air, and it just sucks the. So you gotta.
That's what annoys me.
It's the same with guitars. It's the same. You're supposed to do that, like humidity packs. This is crazy.
It's
so here's the thing. So he posed this question to me, and when filament is shipped to you, it's shipped in a vacuum sealed bag with silica gel.
Yes,
which means their whole goal is to suck as much moisture out as possible. So I think that it is, I mean, the theory is that you want to keep it completely dry. Don't introduce moisture to it. Otherwise, it changes the composition and gets it brittle.
But what if you live like someplace coastal, like by the, you know what I mean? Like San Diego, it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, and I could see...
Is this a dry, Phoenix, Vegas,
like
Colorado?
I can see places where the humidity is super high, which is not a lot of the U.S. I found out that, maybe you want to keep your filament dry in a dehumidified area. But I've now run into the exact opposite problem where we live in an area that has no humidity. Like Colorado yesterday was 22%. And my filament is too dry because it's too brittle now. Like it cracked because it's too brittle. And the comment I got was, it needs to be put in a humidifier. And I'm like, this is the exact opposite of why I was railing against people that put it in dehumidifying boxes. Right.
Well, and at a certain point too, I think it's, like they do the same thing with the guitars, where essentially, like if it was a really, really nice guitar and you wanted to take care of it, and you wanted to sound amazing, and maybe you're a professional musician, but on a certain level, you're kind of like it. it seems like fine tuning at a certain point. You know what I mean? Or like how amazing do we need to make a Mozart? You know what I mean?
And theoretically, a roll of filament costs you $20, and if you get a month out of your filament, I think you should just be happy with it.
Well,
like,
and
why spend all that extra time trying to save a 5.5-year-old filament?
Well, and that's
it's not worth it. The filament's so cheap. It's like, this is not breaking my balls.
And that's the other thing that kind of annoyed me, because earlier today when I was looking up 3D printing TikToks, and I saw one where he made some comment and put his filament in this auto drying box to get fed into his printer. And I'm like, and one of the comments were like, how much does that cost? And he's like, oh, it costs way less than having to buy a new roll or replace rolls. I'm like, what?
Does it?
Really? I'm like, if you're
initially,
I'm like, if you're buying a roll of filament and you're printing in a hobbyist, or if your printer's running at least 2 or 3 days a week, you should go through a roll of filament within a month. If not, like Chris said, it's $20. If you're $20 a month on a hobby is not bad.
Is worth losing. I'm okay with that. If that's all right. It's like when you go and you gamble and like, well, I paid for it was I lost, but I was being entertained, so it's all right. Like,
Yeah, I get so annoyed by this. It's like, oh yeah, buy these products, and then he I don't know if it's affiliated or if he was affiliated or was getting a kickback from the company, but he put the Kickstarter link in for the filament drying thing. So I'm like,
odds are, yeah.
I'm like, so he's getting paid to promote this stupid, probably $100 or more filament dryer. And I'm like, that's not. Most people are not going to need that.
Right. It's I don't know, like it's snake oil salesman. Hey, here's the tonic that'll make your 3D printing the best forever, and you can. It's like
Well,
and then they don't do it.
My favorite one, Kirk, was back in the Great Depression. There was a mail order catalog that was selling solar powered clothes dryers.
Oh, and they were. It's the sun, stupid. It's the sun.
Yeah, they would literally send you like it was a clothesline.
Yeah,
it was a clothesline. Oh.
Yeah, they'd send you a string and 2 nails or whatever, and that was solar powered.
How much? That's yeah.
Only 3 easy payments of $19.95.
You're like, that's capitalism at its finest, but you're like, kind of a dick move.
Like Solar Storm insurance.
I just feel sorry for the people that were like, oh, solar powered clothes dryer. I'll never have to. Oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
So the only other thing I was going to bring up about 3D printing was that there was definitely, and I don't know if Chris can attest to this, but like 3D printing really didn't take off until around 2010-11 when the patents expired. So this is, as far as hobbies go, outside of like drones, and even then, this also kind of applies. You run into a lot of people that are very elitist in their attitudes towards the hobby because they were in on the ground floor. They're the ones that helped figure out a lot of this shit.
They're the punk band. They knew the band before they were big.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of this like, oh well, I could see that people getting the filament and then like, oh, but I get way better prints if I keep it in this plastic box with silica packets.
Well, and John, I was thinking about this, and it's like every hobby that you get into is full of accessories, right? Everything's got accessories for what doesn't matter what it is. Woodworking, fishing, hunting, any of the hobbies that one might do. You're always buying accessories for everything.
Right.
3D printing doesn't have a lot of accessories. So for them to sell you a dry box, it makes sense to me because there's not a whole lot else you can sell me other than a printer.
Get that, but you could like. There's been a lot of companies that have experimented with like modular printers.
But by the way, Drybox is the worst pet name to give. Just never. Not that one. Okay, carry on.
But see, and that's I get what you're saying. Like from a perspective of the manufacturers, like Pressa or Ender or not Ender, Creality. They have to sell. You can only sell so many printers before people stop needing printers. But then
you have to sell them stuff to attach to their printer.
Well, but if you look at companies like Pressa, who they sold the Mark II, and then they sold the upgrade kit for the Mark II S, and they sold the Mark II S, and they sell the upgrade kit, so you can just buy the upgrade, which costs significantly less than the whole printer, and just upgrade your printer. And as far as I know, no other company does that outright. Because I know Creality doesn't, because their printers are cheap and they just, I'm assuming, expect you to, most of the Chinese-based ones, they just expect you to buy the new printer. Even buying upgrades for Creality stuff is kind of stressful. Because I bought...
Yeah, but the average layman too, John, just can't, I'm going to throw myself out there under the bus and say, I'm not going to upgrade my printer because I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, I do get that.
And it's always annoying. As another non-computer guy, it seems every goddamn time my computer keeps saying, upgrade, hey, upgrade. You want to upgrade? Upgrade. I'm like, it's working fine. And then I upgrade and then it stops working. I'm like, God damn it. I'd rather be functional and archaic as opposed to the most up-to-date paperweight.
Yeah.
Right. And if I could just buy the whole thing and just, that's it, all I got to do. All right. Well, I don't want to tinker with all the wires and the upgrades and the...
Well,
yeah,
I get that, but on the same level, 3D printing, you inherently have to have that tinkering mindset, though, because there's stuff you have to do to get it to work correctly. There's no 3D printer out there that will work 100% of the time.
So you're saying it's not a you're all in. You're not. It's not a half in, half out. If you're going to get into this, you get into the.
You have to have at
of
least a basic understanding of how to tinker stuff. Like Chris knows how to change a nozzle. It's not like car level where you have to do X amount of sophisticated things to get your oil changed.
I don't have to put on overalls.
The biggest thing is
But you should.
Nothing wrong with overalls. Come on.
The biggest thing is
I am not over overalls. Anyway, go ahead.
Nozzles and filament jams and stuff like that, and leveling the bed. That's the big one. Is there's a lot of minute tinkering that you have to do. And there's very few. There's almost no printers that will 100% do that for you every single time.
It can be annoying for sure.
So what about? So as a person who's willing to do that and likes that tinkering aspect, is there a way to dumb it down to the point where if you're just you don't want to get to that deep, but you want basics, it can still be fun? Or is it? You know what I mean?
Use a print on demand service at that point, or a maker's workshop.
It would be used in sweatshops, almost as it's just going to repeatedly make widgets.
John, I think your argument has all gone to crap because I 3D print, so that says
I get that, but Kirk's talking about if you don't want to put in any effort, there's makers, there's spaces where you can go and there's 3D printers readily available that are run by the community or maintained by the community. And you go in, be like, this is what I want to print. Yeah, I don't know how they work because I've never used one. I would assume you pay for the filament or anything like that. And
so there's a library, a community center where I want this. Can you make me a...
Yeah, and they have the CNC machines or the laser cutters or the laser engravers, all of that. and I'm assuming you have to pay for either the access or the, something to.
Look, all right,
I
you
need
got to
a
stop
3D
saying.
printed.
But well, if you
I need
keep saying CNC, I'm going to make a CNC Music Factory joke. So can we stop? I'm listening to you, and then I get bam, 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 bam. Okay, I'm not going to do more, but you guys know.
So I'm looking
Well-
like Pikes Peak has a maker space, and it's. So yeah, you have to just reserve your equipment. They've got 2 engravers, a bunch of 3D printers, a vinyl cutter, a table saw, CNC router, metal lathe, CNC mill and lathe. Yeah, it's got a bunch of stuff. You
know how you're a true craftsman when you can work on a the seesaw? Damn it! What was that?
Huh?
The joke fell apart. I had it and then it slipped out. It was the rocking. You're a true craftsman if you use a rocking seesaw. That's difficult, No?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, no, I
John,
found the prices. For a lifetime membership, $5,000.
Dang.
But for a monthly student membership, it's $30,000.
I guess it depends on how much you use it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if you use it tons, it's worth it. If you're a weekend warrior, you're like, screw that.
But I mean, it would be like if I didn't have I wouldn't qualify as a student. For an individual, it would be $55 a month. It's not great, and over a year, I would have just been able to buy like a Prusa printer myself. The difference being that, like, if I wanted to use a laser engraver, I don't have one of those, and a really good laser engraver or a cutting machine is thousands of dollars. And the fact that they even have a Prusa. So they have a Prusa, they have a Taz.
This sounds like, John, a start to an infomercial for this.
But
right.
that's
and they have a Tasmanian devil that is awesome. But I saw one, nothing like the cartoon. It was bullshit. Big disappointment.
I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent. I'm just saying, like, there are spaces that are available for people who are not technically inclined that, can do a lot of stuff. You have to be very focused on what you want to do. But yeah.
Well, hey, John, I think it is that time of night. We're starting to run to it. So let's jump over to Kirk's corner since he's here and see what he's got for us this week.
Now, just show up. Yeah, before
you got still catch up. No, we weren't sure, and I was like, I was going to do a trash can and a raccoon, but
look. And by the way, I'm not going to try to hide it from Chris anymore. When are the flies coming around Chris's name? Seriously, come on. That's all I want. I just want, and then it's just like I said, like there's this normal in space, and there's flies because what he smells that. Wow, come on. All right. Well, hey, I'm. Thanks for having me late. I missed the half of the. You know what? I'm assuming it went well. How about that? I heard nothing, but nobody said anything bad about it in between me getting here. So that's something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, it's time for the Kirk's Corner. So I did a comedian's dozen, except this time no list because let's mix it up, and I didn't have time. But anyway, here's 12 jokes. Are you guys ready for some silliness? All right, here we go. Okay, so here we go. All right, this is a PE coach. This is a PE coach filling in for the home ec teacher. All right. PE coach filling in for the home ec teacher. All right. I want to see more meat hustle out there and a little less meat loafing. Okay. Okay. You know what? One meatloaf joke wasn't enough. Here's another one. Okay. So meatloaf, American classic. Meat loafers, Bad idea. They attract bears on camping trips, and your dog never brings them back to you. They're made. Come on, dog is eating that. All right, 2 Meatloaf jokes right off the bat, and it's nothing about the singer. Okay. Speaking of music, how about Sawdust in the Wind should have been a huge hit for the Carpenters. Hashtag missed opportunity. Am I right? I'm hashtagging it for the young. I'm going for the demographic, the young folk.
Yep.
Here's another one. Whitewater rafting only signs are not racist. They're not.
Oh.
It's
Wow.
It's for your own. No, all right. How about Sherlock Holmes? Sherlock Holmes lived in an apartment. All right, that's Sherlock Holmes. Okay. All right. How about this one? Dick trickle down economics works better than trickle down economics. The race car driver? Come on, you guys are.
I gotcha.
All right. Okay, here's a nightmare gig for hypnotist. Has to be a room full of insomniacs. Think about it. You're getting sleepy. Nope. Your eyes are getting heavy. Boy, are you barking up the wrong tree. Now, strap in, Sparky. It's going to be a long night. Or if Pinocchio got a nose job, would it grow back? Because it's technically a fib. It's not as. I mean, so just whoop. God damn it. And speaking of Pinocchio, his insurance company didn't even cover his case of Dutch elm disease and termites because they said they were pre-existing conditions. Damn it. All right. Here's you know what? Bo knows. Bo doesn't know Bono. Okay. It's so close. They think okay. How about narcissists love self-checkout? Okay, shitting the bed, not recommended. Dry sheeting the bed, encouraged. Dry it's pleasant. It smells better, softer. My emotional support animal ate my security blanket. Hashtag bad dog. Okay, I think we got like two. Oh, wait, one more. No. Okay, here we go. Here's the last. Okay, so here's the last one. Drum roll. Can I get drum roll? Can you go? Brrr?
I don't know if you could hear that. I was drum rolling.
Okay, yeah, you actually have a drum set. Anyway, okay, so here's the thing. The prostitute on the environmentally conscious corner was called the leaf blower.
Oh.
Leaf, come on. That's yada. You save the dirty one for last.
Right.
That's comedy 101.
With my drum set, I needed a rim shot right there.
Yeah, can we work on some sound effects? Like, come on, a rim. That'd be
eventually.
perfect.
Eventually.
Okay, so did any of those stick in your craw or further discussion?
I like the Pinocchio one.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Pinocchio one is.
That's solid.
Nice.
Much all like right. Pinocchio's nose.
Yeah, some sort. Because like he turned into a boy, but he's like, hey, oh. And yeah. Well, okay. So maybe we can make a shirt out of that one too.
There you go. I already got ideas, Kirk. I can make it happen.
Excellent. Okay. Hey, well that was let's get the hell out of Kirk's corner and then wrap this show up because I feel it's nice sitting, but I'm tired.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna pull a John. No. We soldier through, but yeah. So, and I don't have an off topic because I was on my feet for 7 hours. So you get your own off topic.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and just wrap it up there. We ended up making it longer than I thought we would, John. So Yeah.
I can give you my quick fix for capitalism.
No, we're not.
We're right around the 70. We're in the sweet spot. No, hold that thought. Well, you know what? We'll talk about it next week on show number 38. Holy cow.
I successfully stalled John from getting that into the podcast. So
I'll just make a TikTok about it, you know.
That's cool. I don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
I will talk about this. I honestly think it is a good fix for everything. But
okay, that being said, I think Kirk's tired. John wants to talk about things I don't want to talk about. And
2 against 3.
yeah. Well, thank you everybody for coming in and listening to me and John's and Kirk's quarter of an episode. But we appreciate you coming out and listening. We look forward to next week, episode 38. John, got anything to wrap it up with other than capitalism?
Tomorrow is Space Engineers. And then judging by the what we've gotten, I don't know when we're going to do the next Free the Game, but I have a bunch of stuff for that too.
Yeah, maybe Sunday. We'll talk about that tomorrow night during the next stream for Space Engineers. Kirk, got anything?
No, tip your bartenders.
Good advice to live by. All right, well then, for me, Kirk and John, thank you all again for listening. We will see you next week, and go boldly, friends.